An international team of preservationists are trying to save Roman mosaics in conflict regions in North Africa and the Middle East, including in Tunisia and Syria. And unlike restoring a painting, which can be transported, these restorers have to go to the mosaics. Here to discuss her story is WSJ contributor Hilary Potkewitz. Hilary, welcome. Thanks for being here. Tell us about Thomas Roby and what he's doing.
Sure. He's a mosaic expert at the Getty Conservation Institute in LA, and he runs field projects for them. He's managing a site in Tunisia where he's runs a training program that's training local workers at ancient sites to how to conserve the mosaics that are there.
And this is a painstaking process, isn't it? Tell us a bit about what he does with each mosaic.
Sure. My understanding is that they're made of thousands of small stone tiles, and these are centuries old. They've been exposed to the elements, so a lot of it is carefully removing lichen and moss and other debris that's been growing. Sometimes they've been buried, and then taking this like special mortar and sort of filling in between the tiles and kind of just stabilizing it to make sure they can last longer.
And his tool bag sounds fascinating. Some of these special instruments that he has in there. Tell us about some of the very real dangers he's faced.
Sure. Well, he said until recently in Tunisia, for example, the violence really hadn't been directed against tourists or foreigners. But then in March, there was an attack at the National Museum, the Bardo Museum. And so he had a program there in May. And basically he said that, suddenly they had to think more about, do they travel at night or do they need a military escort and just things like that. And he actually just told me they needed to postpone a trip for November just due to the security concerns.
And yet he is planning on continuing this work and going back. He says it's very important.
Right. Well, he talks about there's, conservation work being done in places like Libya and other places that are like in the middle of, major conflicts.
And tell us about these mosaics themselves. I mean, they date from the Roman Empire, some even earlier.
Right, from the Romans and then the Byzantine era, and they're sort of all over the Mediterranean, North Africa, and the Middle East. And some of them are geometric patterns, or they'll be figures from like daily life and things like that. They're often the ones that still remain are like cover the floors of some of these palaces.
What treasures? What else has he told you about the dangers facing these antiquities right now? Not just the mosaics, but all of these historical treasures.
One of the things he said, part of it is that a lot of these governments don't have the money to care for all of the things they have. So what they're doing, for example, sometimes they're stabilizing a mosaic and then they have to rebury it.
To protect it.
To protect it, and just so that they can focus on a few, to keep for tourists and whatever, and then hopefully, like in later times, they may be able to uncover the ones that they've buried.
They mean to hide it when they bury it?
It's mostly for protection,
okay.
He says, from sort of the elements and just to kind of keep them stable.
All right, Hilary Potkewitz, thank you so much for that.